"Watch till end. Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath," she whispered. The grand hall of the summit station was filled with tension so thick it felt like a storm ready to break. Aliens of every shape and size crowded the chamber, their eyes reflecting suspicion and hostility. Some were tall and thin with shimmering skin that seemed to ripple like water. Others were short, stocky, and covered in scales that glinted under the lights. At the center, humans had never felt so small. Among them stood Captain Leora Hayes, the human diplomat sent to negotiate peace between rival interstellar factions. She had trained for years for this moment, yet nothing in her experience had prepared her for the heavy silence that greeted her as she entered the chamber. The aliens were already on edge. The Zelari and the Rhinari, two of the most powerful species in the galaxy, had been on the brink of war for decades. Entire star systems had been destroyed in the past skirmishes, and no one wanted history to repeat itself. But mistrust ran too deep. Every word spoken at the summit was measured, every gesture scrutinized. Leora scanned the room, feeling the weight of countless eyes on her. She noticed the Rhinari commander first, a towering being with silver-gray armor-like skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. His gaze was piercing, assessing, almost predatory. He had a reputation for never smiling, never showing mercy. Anyone facing him in negotiation could feel the danger in the air, and Leora felt it now, pressing against her chest. Her own species, humans, had been considered weak for centuries. Many alien races laughed at their supposed fragility, their lack of natural psychic shields, and their simple physical structure. But humans were clever. Humans were adaptable. And Leora knew the secret strength humans held, the ability to survive and thrive without armor, emotional or physical. As she stepped forward, the room fell into a deeper silence. Delegates from other species whispered among themselves, their voices low and tense. Leora approached the central platform where the alien commanders were already seated. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Greetings," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I am Captain Leora Hayes, representing the United Earth Alliance. I am here to speak for peace." Her words hung in the air. The Zelari and Rhinari eyes fixed on her, scanning for weakness. Leora knew they were searching for hesitation, a crack in her confidence. Humans had no natural psychic shield, and aliens often believed that made them easy to manipulate. But Leora also knew that her transparency could be a weapon if used wisely. The Rhinari commander leaned forward slightly, his glowing eyes narrowing. "You speak boldly, human," he said in a voice like gravel rolling over stone. "Do you understand the gravity of this situation? One wrong move and your entire planet could be destroyed." Leora did not flinch. She looked him directly in the eyes. "I understand, Commander. That is why I am here. We all share the same goal, survival. We must find a way to avoid destruction." A murmur passed through the alien delegates. Some shifted uneasily in their seats, unsure how to interpret her courage. Most were accustomed to leaders who relied on threats or power displays. Humans, however, were different. They faced danger without backing down, a trait that fascinated and unsettled the aliens. Then, in a moment that would change the course of the summit, Leora leaned forward slightly and whispered words no one expected. "Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath." The room froze. Every alien head turned toward her. Their expressions were unreadable at first, then quickly shifted to confusion, disbelief, and shock. The words had a strange effect. They were not sexual in meaning. The aliens quickly realized that. Instead, the phrase triggered something deep within their collective memory, an ancient cultural archive that had been buried for centuries. The Rhinari commander's eyes widened slightly, though he did not move. The phrase had been a test among his ancestors, a way to detect truth and vulnerability in negotiations. No outsider had ever spoken it, certainly not a human. The sheer audacity of her words made the room tense with anticipation. Leora remained calm. She did not smile, she did not flinch. She simply let the silence linger, knowing that the effect of her words would do more than any threat could. The aliens were grappling with something they had not expected, a human who could affect them without weapons, without intimidation, without force. A Zelari diplomat, her skin a soft iridescent blue, finally broke the silence. "What does she mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. The Rhinari commander spoke, his tone low and careful. "She is speaking without protection. Mentally, emotionally, she is unshielded. Her kind has no barriers, no psychic armor. That is why her words carry weight." Leora had not spoken randomly. Every word, every gesture had been calculated. She knew the aliens assumed humans were fragile, incapable of handling the pressures of galactic politics. But humans thrived under pressure. Humans had survived wars, plagues, environmental disasters, all without psychic shields or protective armor. That very vulnerability was a secret strength. The delegates began to shift in their seats, whispering among themselves. The tension in the room became almost tangible. Humans were not just fragile beings to be ignored or dismissed. They were capable of surprising feats of resilience and bravery. Leora straightened her posture and addressed the room once more. "I am not here to threaten, nor am I here to intimidate. I am here to speak the truth, without disguise, without shields. Humanity has survived not because we are strong like you, but because we endure, because we adapt, because we are willing to face the unknown without fear." The Zelari and Rhinari commanders exchanged a glance. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of the human ability to endure. For the first time, some of the delegates felt uncertainty. Humans were not predictable. Humans could not be read with mental probes or psychic manipulation. They were different. As Leora spoke, the whispers grew louder. The delegates were curious. They were intrigued. And in that moment, the balance of power in the room shifted, not because of force or dominance, but because one human had dared to stand unprotected in front of thousands of alien eyes and speak the truth. The summit, which had been moments away from collapse into chaos, slowed. Negotiations could now begin in a way they never had before. The aliens realized that humans, with their strange openness and courage, might just be the species capable of bridging decades of hostility. Leora's whisper, a simple phrase, had done what no weapon or threat could achieve. It had stopped a war before it began, not through intimidation, but through exposure, honesty, and the human capacity to endure without shields. The room remained quiet for a moment longer, then the Rhinari commander finally spoke. "You are brave human," he said. "Perhaps too brave for your own good, but your words, they demand attention." Leora nodded, knowing the real work had only just begun. This was not victory, this was an opening. The future of entire star systems now rested on her ability to guide these negotiations. But she was ready. Humans had survived worse. Humans had always adapted. And humans, she thought, were not afraid to stand unprotected, because true strength came from the courage to face the unknown. The delegates continued to watch her, some with suspicion, some with curiosity, and some with awe. And for the first time in generations, there was a possibility of peace. Leora stepped back, letting the moment sink in. Her heart still raced, but she held her posture firm. The whisper had done its job. The aliens were listening. The humans were being taken seriously. And the galaxy, fragile and uncertain as it was, might just have a chance at survival after all. The room had not yet recovered from Leora's whispered words. The alien delegates murmured among themselves, their voices low and tense, as if trying to understand something long buried. Leora remained calm, aware that the quiet attention she held was fragile. One wrong move, one poorly chosen word, and the summit could collapse into chaos. The Rhinari commander, the towering figure of silver-gray armor-like skin, stepped forward. His glowing eyes fixed on Leora, studying her as if she were a puzzle that defied all reason. "You speak words our kind has not heard for millennia," he said, his voice a low rumble. "How do you know them?" Leora did not flinch. Humans were known for their courage under pressure, and this moment demanded it. "I do not speak them by chance," she replied steadily. "I have studied your history, your culture, and your language. I learned your words to understand you, not to threaten you." The room shifted. A ripple of whispers passed through the delegates, some of them expressing disbelief, others curiosity. Humans had always been considered weak and unremarkable, incapable of surviving situations that required mental acuity or emotional control. Yet here stood a human who had done what no one else could: speak a phrase that carried both weight and truth in the alien world. The Zelari diplomat, her iridescent skin shimmering under the lights, stepped closer. "It is impossible," she said softly, her voice filled with awe. "No human should know this. These words were forbidden. They were erased from our records centuries ago." "Yes," the Rhinari commander said, nodding slowly. "The phrase you spoke is not meant for outsiders. It is part of a ritual we call the test of vulnerability. Only those willing to expose themselves completely can pass it. To speak it without understanding its power, it is unprecedented." Leora's expression did not change. She had expected surprise, even suspicion, but she had not expected the depth of interest in their voices. The test of vulnerability, she realized, was not just a cultural relic. It was a key to understanding alien psychology, a way to measure openness, honesty, and the ability to endure emotional scrutiny. "You wish to test me?" she asked. Her tone was calm, but her mind raced. The opportunity she now had could change the course of the summit, perhaps even prevent war. Humans thrived under pressure, and this test would allow her species to demonstrate strengths that other civilizations could not imagine. The Rhinari commander considered her carefully. "Perhaps," he said finally, "but understand this, human. The test is not a game. It is designed to expose your deepest fears, your hidden doubts, and your weaknesses. Many who attempt it fail completely. They break. Their minds cannot withstand the scrutiny." Leora nodded. "I am aware of the risk, but humans have survived far greater challenges than exposure. We endure. That is our nature." The delegates whispered again, and a murmur of disbelief spread through the room. Humans surviving such a trial, it seemed impossible to them. No other species could endure vulnerability in the same way humans could. Mental shields, psychic barriers, emotional defenses, these were tools the aliens had relied on for centuries. Humans, however, had none. They lived uncovered, emotionally exposed, and yet they had survived and thrived in the harshest conditions. The Zelari diplomat stepped closer, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Your kind, you survive because you have no shields," she said slowly. "It is not weakness, it is strength, but strength we do not understand." "Yes," Leora replied. "We survive because we face the unknown without fear. We endure what others cannot. We adapt. That is how we have built civilizations, crossed galaxies, and survived wars that would destroy any other species." The Rhinari commander's glowing eyes seemed to study her in a new way. "Your species is extraordinary," he admitted. "We have underestimated you. We assumed you were fragile, but your courage, your openness, it is remarkable." The summit hall was quiet again, but this time the silence was different. It was not tense with anger or fear. It was quiet with curiosity, with fascination. The aliens were no longer seeing humans as weak. They were seeing humans as a species capable of something extraordinary. Leora stepped forward slightly, addressing the room. "The words I spoke are more than a phrase. They are a symbol. They represent openness, truth, and courage. We live without armor, emotional or otherwise. That is why I can speak to you honestly, and that is why I am here today, to find a way to prevent war and ensure survival." The Zelari diplomat tilted her head, studying Leora carefully. No other species could stand here and do what you do. Your honesty, your willingness to face us unshielded, it is unsettling, and yet inspiring." The Rhinari commander spoke again, his voice low and deliberate. "There is a trial, human, one that no outsider has ever passed. It is not just words or gestures. It is a challenge to your mind and spirit. Many who attempt it do not survive emotionally, mentally, or even physically. But if you succeed, you will prove to us that your species is more than we believed." Leora's heart raced, but she kept her expression calm. Humans thrived under challenge. Humans adapted. Humans survived. "I accept the trial," she said simply. "If it will help bring peace, I will face whatever test you place before me." The delegates murmured among themselves. Some were shocked, some were curious, some were doubtful, but all were watching Leora, waiting to see what she would do next. No human had ever been offered such a trial, and few species outside their own had survived it. The Rhinari commander inclined his head slightly. "Very well," he said. "The test of vulnerability will begin. But understand, human, this trial is not simple. You will face visions of your deepest fears. You will feel emotions you never imagined. You will be exposed in ways your species has never known. You may find the experience overwhelming." "I understand," Leora replied, "but humans endure. That is what we do." The room shifted again as the trial was prepared. Alien devices hummed softly and strange lights danced across the chamber. Leora felt a subtle pressure in her mind, as if invisible hands were trying to probe her thoughts. She remained calm, focusing on her breathing, centering herself. The Zelari diplomat whispered to a nearby assistant, "It is remarkable. No other species could withstand this. But the human, she is different. They do not have shields. They do not hide. That is why they survive." Leora took a deep breath. She knew the aliens had underestimated her species. They had assumed weakness where there was strength, vulnerability where there was resilience. And now, as the trial began, she would demonstrate that humanity's greatest power lay not in force, but in the courage to face the unknown without protection. The lights in the chamber grew brighter. The humming intensified. Leora felt a strange warmth in her chest, a mixture of fear and determination. This was the moment that would define the summit. She would either succeed, proving humanity's extraordinary resilience, or fail, showing the aliens that humans were fragile as they had long believed. She closed her eyes for a brief moment and centered herself. Humans had survived worse. Humans had faced disasters, wars, and the unknown countless times. This trial, no matter how alien, was just another challenge to endure. She opened her eyes, meeting the gaze of the alien commanders. "I am ready," she said. Her voice was calm, steady, and unwavering. The Rhinari commander nodded, and the trial began. The chamber was quiet except for the soft hum of the alien machinery. Leora stood at the center, her feet firmly planted, her breathing steady. She could feel the pressure in the air, a strange weight pressing on her mind as the test of vulnerability began. The Rhinari commander watched her intently, his glowing eyes reflecting curiosity and something else, respect. The first sensation came suddenly. Leora felt her thoughts opening, not by choice, but as if the room itself were pulling them out gently, inspecting them. She did not panic. Humans had faced unknown dangers countless times. They had endured challenges that would have broken other species. She knew she could endure this as well. "Focus, human," the Rhinari commander's voice echoed in her mind, though his lips did not move. "This is the first step. You must understand what it means to be exposed." Leora's eyes widened slightly. Exposed. That was exactly what the whispered phrase had meant. The words, "curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath," were not about clothing. They were symbolic. They represented being without shields, without armor, without mental barriers. Humans had lived like this for generations. They faced the universe openly, emotionally, fully aware of their weaknesses, and yet they thrived. The first visions appeared before her eyes. They were not real, but they felt real. She saw a world burning under alien warships, families separated by disasters, friends lost to strange diseases, entire civilizations collapsing. Every human memory of fear and loss she had ever learned or imagined appeared as a wave crashing over her mind. Some humans might have faltered here, frozen under the weight of so much vulnerability. But Leora felt something else. She felt clarity. Humans had endured worse. Their strength did not come from hiding their fears, but from facing them. She reached into the core of herself and centered her thoughts, letting each vision pass like clouds across the sky. The Zelari diplomat watched in awe. "How she does not break," she whispered to her assistant. "No one else could withstand this. She is different." "Yes," the Rhinari commander replied softly. "She has no shields. She is fully exposed. That is why she survives." As the visions continued, Leora began to understand the true power of the test. It was not meant to destroy physically, but to strip a being of every defense. It revealed their fears, their regrets, their insecurities, and forced them to confront them. Most species would crumble under such scrutiny, but humans had been training for this unknowingly for millennia. Leora focused on her training, on the experiences that had shaped humanity. She thought of the explorers who crossed unknown stars, the scientists who solved impossible problems, the communities that rebuilt after disasters, and the countless humans who had faced fear and loss without despair. She felt their courage flowing through her, strengthening her resolve. The visions shifted. Now she saw herself in the chamber, surrounded by alien eyes, the words she had whispered echoing in the minds of the delegates. She realized the full impact of what she had done. The phrase was a challenge, a declaration of openness, and it had unsettled the aliens profoundly. They were not used to seeing a being face them without armor, without shields, and yet stand firm. "You see now, human," the Rhinari commander said, his voice echoing in her mind again. "The phrase you spoke was not merely a test, it was a symbol. It is the proof that you understand what it means to be exposed. Your species' strength lies in this openness. Most beings hide behind walls, mental or physical. You do not. That is why you endure." Leora nodded, though the commander could not see it. She understood now why humans had survived against the odds. They faced vulnerability every day, loss, fear, conflict, uncertainty, and yet they continued. They did not fear exposure because they had no choice. They had learned resilience through openness. The chamber seemed to respond to her understanding. The hum of the alien machinery softened. The lights pulsed gently, as if acknowledging her mental stability. The delegates leaned forward, their eyes wide, watching as a human demonstrated what they had never believed possible. Then came the second challenge. The visions became more personal. Leora saw memories from her own life, moments she had never shared, moments of fear, doubt, and failure. Each vision was designed to provoke, to break her concentration, to make her wish for mental shields she did not possess. Her first thought was instinctive. She could feel her heart race, a surge of fear, but she did not panic. Humans survived by understanding and accepting fear, not avoiding it. She let each memory flow through her mind, acknowledging each emotion fully, and then releasing it. Her resilience grew with each passing vision. "You endure because you understand yourself," the Rhinari commander said. "You do not hide. That is why you can withstand what no other species could. Your openness is your armor." Leora's thoughts turned to the alien delegates. She realized that they were watching closely, learning from her, measuring her, trying to understand what it meant to live without shields. In a way, she was teaching them something profound, that true strength comes not from hiding weaknesses but from facing them openly, honestly, and without fear. As the test progressed, Leora felt something new, a connection. Not to the aliens, not to the chamber, but to humanity itself. Every trial, every fear, Every memory she faced reminded her of the resilience of her species. Humans had survived plagues, wars, and natural disasters. Humans had crossed deserts, oceans, and stars. Humans had always endured because they did not hide from reality, they faced it fully. The visions began to fade, replaced by a strange clarity. Leora could sense the reactions of the delegates. Some were impressed, some confused, and some deeply unsettled. They had never witnessed such courage, such resilience. A human, fully exposed, unshielded, had faced the ancient test of vulnerability and remained steadfast. The Rhinari commander stepped closer, his glowing eyes now softer, almost approving. "You understand the meaning of the phrase," he said. "It was never about physical armor. It was about courage, about openness, about the willingness to endure without hiding. You have proven that your species possesses what no other species does, resilience through exposure." Leora nodded, feeling a wave of relief and pride. She had survived the first stage of the trial. More importantly, she had demonstrated the essence of humanity: courage, adaptability, and endurance. She had shown the aliens that humans were not weak, that humans could face challenges without shields, and that humans could thrive even under the greatest pressures. The chamber quieted once more. The delegates leaned back, exchanging glances and murmurs. The Zelari diplomat whispered to her assistant, her voice full of awe. "They are incredible. They survive because they have no shields. That is not weakness. It is strength beyond comprehension." The Rhinari commander turned his attention fully to Leora. "The first part of the trial is complete," he said. "You have demonstrated understanding, endurance, and courage. But there are still challenges ahead. The test is not yet finished. You must continue to prove that your species can face the unknown and remain unbroken." Leora straightened, taking a deep breath. She knew the next stages would be even more difficult, but she was ready. Humans had faced impossibilities before. Humans had endured without protection, and humans would continue to do so, no matter what trials awaited them. For the first time, she understood the full significance of her whispered words. They were not a joke, not a challenge to the aliens in the way they had first imagined. They were a declaration. Humans faced the universe without shields, and that very vulnerability was their greatest strength. The test of vulnerability had begun, and Leora had passed the first stage. But the journey was far from over. The aliens were watching, the chamber was alive with energy, and the fate of the summit, and perhaps the galaxy, rested on her ability to endure what no other being could. Leora took a deep breath, steeling herself. Humans had survived worse. Humans had always adapted. And humans, she thought, were not afraid to stand unprotected, because true strength came from the courage to face the unknown. The chamber was still alive with quiet energy. Leora stood in the center, her mind steady after the first stage of the test of vulnerability. She could feel the alien delegates watching her every move, their curiosity growing into something more profound: admiration, even cautious respect. The Rhinari commander stepped closer, his glowing eyes fixed on her. "You have endured much, human," he said. "Yet this trial is only beginning. Most beings would have crumbled under the first stage. You, however, remain steadfast. I want to see if your species' strength endures under true pressure." Leora nodded, her resolve unwavering. Humans had faced impossible odds before. Wars, disasters, disease, isolation. None of these had broken her species. They endured not because they were naturally powerful, but because they adapted. They learned. They persisted. And that persistence had shaped humanity into a species unlike any other in the galaxy. The chamber shifted again, alien machinery humming as the next phase of the trial began. Strange lights swirled around Leora, and her mind was filled with visions once more. This time, the visions were not of abstract disasters or imagined fears. They were real scenarios. She saw entire colonies under siege, systems cut off from each other, humans facing hunger, cold, and isolation. She felt the fear and desperation of millions, past and present. Some beings might have broken under this weight, but Leora did not. She had learned that humans survived not by hiding from fear, but by confronting it. She reached deep into herself, drawing on the strength of countless humans who had endured far worse. Each vision, each wave of fear, she faced without shielding herself, without retreating. She absorbed it, understood it, and moved through it. The Rhinari commander's eyes narrowed slightly. "Incredible," he murmured. "No species could withstand this with such clarity. You are extraordinary." The Zelari diplomat leaned closer, her iridescent skin shimmering. "It is not just endurance," she whispered to an assistant. "It is understanding. She does not simply survive fear, she comprehends it, learns from it, and moves forward. No other species could do this." Leora felt the room responding to her mental steadiness. The lights pulsed gently, and the hum of the machinery softened. She realized that the aliens were testing more than just her mind. They were testing her species. And humans, she knew, had always been able to rise to challenges that no one else could. The next set of visions intensified. Now she saw herself isolated on a distant planet, cut off from communication, facing unknown predators and harsh conditions. The fear she felt was real, visceral, and overwhelming, but she did not panic. Humans had survived in deserts, forests, oceans, and even space. They had always endured the unknown. Leora focused, letting her mind process the fear without letting it control her. "You are remarkable," the Rhinari commander said again. "Your kind does not rely on shields or armor. You survive because you adapt, because you face reality without hiding from it. That is the human advantage." Leora understood now what he meant. Every species in the galaxy relied on barriers, mental, physical, emotional, to protect themselves. Humans had none. They faced the universe unprotected, and yet it was this very vulnerability that gave them strength. They could see opportunities others missed. They could respond to danger with creativity and courage. They could endure situations that would shatter others. The Zelari diplomat's voice was filled with awe. "Their openness, it is a weapon we cannot counter. Their survival depends not on defense but on courage. That is why they endure." Leora's mind was calm, but her heart raced. She could feel the weight of the visions, the presence of the alien delegates, the hum of the machinery. And yet she was not afraid. Humans thrived under pressure. They adapted to survive. They endured not because they were invincible, but because they faced the impossible without fear. The visions shifted again. Now she saw humans working together, supporting each other in moments of crisis. Communities rebuilding after disasters, scientists racing against time to find solutions, explorers venturing into the unknown. Humans endured because they relied on each other, because they combined courage, intelligence, and compassion. It was a combination no other species had mastered. The Rhinari commander watched closely, his glowing eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and admiration. "Your kind does not merely endure fear," he said. "You learn from it, you grow from it. That is why humanity can survive what others cannot. That is why your whispered words carried such weight." Leora remembered the phrase she had spoken at the summit, "Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath." It was not about clothing, not about physical exposure. It was about openness, honesty, and the willingness to face the unknown without protection. Humans lived like that every day, and now the aliens were beginning to see it for themselves. The chamber seemed to respond. The hum of the machinery softened, the lights pulsed gently, and a sense of calm spread through the room. The delegates were no longer merely observing, they were learning. They were beginning to understand why humans had survived and thrived in a galaxy full of dangers. The next challenge came as a test of decision-making. Leora was shown visions of moral dilemmas, situations where she had to choose between survival and the well-being of others. Some visions were simple, some complex. Each tested her ability to act with integrity, to make choices under pressure, and to endure the consequences. Humans had always faced such choices. They had survived by balancing self-interest with cooperation, by adapting to circumstances while remaining true to their values. Leora made each decision carefully, guided by reason, empathy, and courage. She felt the weight of each choice, but she did not falter. Humans had learned that survival was more than endurance. It was understanding, compassion, and ingenuity combined. The Rhinari commander stepped closer. "This is extraordinary," he said. "Your kind's resilience is not just physical or mental. It is moral, emotional, and intellectual. You survive because you adapt in every possible way. You endure because you face the universe unshielded, yet remain thoughtful and brave." The Zelari diplomat nodded. "No other species could have done this. They rely on barriers and defenses. Humans, they live exposed, and that exposure is their greatest strength." Leora took a deep breath, feeling a wave of pride for her species. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most powerful, but they were the most adaptable. They could endure, learn, and grow in ways no other species could. That was why the whispered phrase had such power. That was why the aliens were astonished. That was why humanity had a chance to bridge differences that had divided the galaxy for centuries. The final visions of the trial began to fade. Leora felt a sense of clarity, a calm assurance that humans had faced countless trials before and emerged stronger. She had survived this stage of the test not because she was invincible, but because she understood her species' greatest advantage: courage, openness, and resilience. The chamber quieted. The alien delegates leaned back, exchanging glances, whispers, and murmurs. The Rhinari commander's glowing eyes softened as he looked at Leora. "You have proven that your species possesses a strength unlike any other. You survive where others would fail. You endure where others would break. You have shown the human advantage in full." Leora nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The trial was not over, but she had demonstrated what humans were capable of. They endured, adapted, and thrived not because of shields, not because of armor, but because they faced life fully and courageously. The Zelari diplomat stepped forward, her voice soft but filled with awe. "The human species is remarkable. They survive because they are unshielded, yet they do not falter. They adapt where others fail. They endure where others break. That is a lesson no one else could teach us." The Rhinari commander inclined his head. "You have passed this stage, human, but there are more challenges ahead. We wish to see if your species' strength endures under all circumstances, not just isolation or fear. That is the true measure of resilience." Leora took a deep breath, her resolve unshaken. Humans had survived worse. Humans had adapted to impossible conditions. Humans had endured when all seemed lost, and humans would continue to do so, no matter what trials awaited them. She looked at the alien delegates and the commanders standing tall and calm. "Humans endure," she said quietly. "We adapt, we survive, and we will continue to face the unknown unshielded without fear. That is what makes us strong." The chamber was silent for a moment, and then the Rhinari commander spoke again, his voice steady and approving. "Indeed, that is the human advantage." The chamber pulsed with a quiet intensity. Leora stood tall, her mind clear after the previous stages of the test of vulnerability. She could feel the attention of every alien delegate in the room, their glowing eyes following her, watching for any sign of weakness. They had seen her endure fear, isolation, and moral challenges. Yet now the Rhinari commander stepped forward with a gravity that signaled the final stage of the trial. "This stage will push you further than any being has ever been pushed," the commander said, his voice calm but firm. "You have endured visions, confronted fear, and demonstrated adaptability. But the ultimate test will measure your ability to remain unbroken under total exposure. Liara took a deep breath. Humans had faced impossibilities before. She had been trained to withstand mental pressure, emotional strain, and moral dilemmas. And now she understood the true purpose of this final trial: to show the aliens that humanity's strength was not in power, not in shields, but in courage, adaptability, and resilience. The chamber's lights dimmed, replaced by a shifting glow that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. The air grew warmer, almost tangible, as if the room itself were alive. Liara felt a subtle tug on her consciousness, a sensation like invisible hands probing every thought, every fear, every memory. This was the true exposure the trial demanded: complete openness, without defense, without hesitation. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, centering herself. Humans had endured far worse in the past: environmental catastrophes, wars, diseases, and isolation. They had faced the unknown countless times. They had survived because they did not hide from reality, they faced it head-on. When she opened her eyes, visions appeared once more. This time, they were more vivid, more intense than anything she had seen before. She saw humans trapped in collapsing buildings, stranded on distant planets, navigating treacherous environments with no help. She saw families separated by conflict, communities struggling to survive against overwhelming odds, and explorers venturing into the void with nothing but determination. Each vision was designed to test her endurance, to provoke fear, doubt, and despair. Yet Liara did not flinch. She acknowledged each emotion fully, understanding it, and letting it pass without letting it dominate her. Humans did not survive by hiding from fear. They survived by confronting it, learning from it, and finding strength in adversity. The Zelari diplomat watched closely, her iridescent skin reflecting the shifting lights. "No other species could withstand this," she whispered to her assistant. "She remains calm, yet every vision strikes with full intensity. She is remarkable." The Rhinari commander's glowing eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of respect entering his expression. "You are proving the truth of what we suspected," he said. "Humans survive because they live without armor. They endure because they face fear, loss, and uncertainty without retreat. Their exposure is their strength." As the visions continued, Liara felt a connection not just to her own experiences, but to the collective history of humanity. Every human who had endured hardship, every explorer who had crossed unknown worlds, every scientist who had solved impossible problems, all of their courage and resilience flowed through her. She understood that her ability to remain unbroken was not just her own, it was the strength of her entire species. Then came the most personal part of the trial. The visions shifted to her own memories, moments of self-doubt, fear of failure, and regret over choices she had made. These were the memories that might have crushed another being, but Liara faced them openly. She acknowledged every doubt, every mistake, and every fear, understanding that to survive, she had to accept herself fully, imperfections and all. "You endure because you embrace reality," the Rhinari commander said, his voice calm, almost reverent. "You do not hide from fear, regret, or doubt. That is why no other species could pass this trial. That is why humanity is extraordinary." Liara felt a wave of determination wash over her. The trial was designed to break beings who relied on shields and defenses. Humans had none. They lived unshielded, open to pain and fear, and yet they endured. That openness was not weakness, it was strength beyond measure. The chamber seemed to respond to her mental steadiness. The lights brightened slightly, and the hum of the machinery softened. The alien delegates leaned forward, their curiosity now mixed with awe. They were witnessing something unprecedented. A human, fully exposed, remaining unbroken under pressure that would have destroyed other species. The final visions approached. Liara was shown scenarios of potential future crises, wars that threatened multiple star systems, environmental disasters on uninhabited planets, and conflicts that could ignite decades-long struggles. Each vision was filled with uncertainty, danger, and fear. Yet she did not falter. Humans had faced uncertainty throughout history, and they had always adapted. Leora allowed herself to process each scenario logically, calmly, and with resolve, demonstrating the combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability that defined her species. The Rhinari commander spoke again, his voice firm. "This is the ultimate test of endurance, human." Most beings would break under this pressure, surrendering to fear or despair. You remain steady, you adapt, you face reality without retreat. That is why your species has survived where others would fail. The Zelari diplomat's voice carried awe. Humans do not hide. They face everything fully. That is why they endure. That is why they thrive. That is why they are unlike any other species in the galaxy. Leora felt a quiet pride. She had passed each stage of the trial, not through power, not through shields, but through courage, intelligence, and resilience. Humans had survived impossible odds for centuries, and now she had shown the aliens exactly why. Finally, the chamber's machinery quieted. The visions receded, leaving only the glow of the lights and the presence of the alien delegates. The room was silent, but the energy was palpable. The aliens exchanged glances, whispers, and gestures. They had never witnessed anything like this. A human had passed the test of vulnerability in full, demonstrating a resilience that no other species could match. The Rhinari commander stepped forward. His glowing eyes softened as he regarded Leora. "You have proven the strength of your species," he said. "You have faced exposure, fear, and uncertainty without retreat. You have endured where no other being could. Your courage and resilience are unparalleled. The trial is complete." Leora nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The trial had tested her in ways no human had ever experienced, yet she had endured. She understood now that humanity's true power lay not in physical strength or shields, but in openness, courage, adaptability, and the ability to endure under pressure. The Zelari diplomat stepped closer, her voice filled with awe. "Your species is remarkable. They survive because they face everything fully. They endure because they embrace fear and uncertainty, not because they avoid it. That is a lesson we have never learned." Leora smiled faintly. "Humans have survived because we face reality, unshielded and unafraid. That is our greatest strength." The chamber remained quiet for a moment, the alien delegates absorbing the truth of her words. Then the Rhinari commander inclined his head. "You have proven it. Humanity's courage, resilience, and adaptability are unmatched. You have passed the test of vulnerability. No species could have endured as you have. Your whispered words were not merely symbolic, they were the key to understanding your species. You have shown us that true strength lies in facing the unknown without fear." Leora felt a wave of relief and pride. She had not only passed the trial for herself, but for her species. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as weak or fragile. Now the aliens had witnessed firsthand the extraordinary resilience that defined humanity. The Zelari diplomat whispered to her assistant once more. "They are extraordinary. Their strength is in their openness, in their courage, and in their ability to endure without shields. That is something no other species can match." The Rhinari commander's voice resonated through the chamber one final time. "Let this be remembered. Humans have endured what no one else could. They faced the universe unshielded, fully aware of fear, uncertainty, and loss. And yet they thrive. That is the power of your species." Leora straightened, her posture firm, and allowed herself a quiet smile. Humans had survived countless challenges throughout history. Humans had endured hardships that no other species could imagine. And humans would continue to thrive, unshielded and courageous, because that was their nature. The test of vulnerability was complete. The aliens had learned the truth about humanity. Their greatest power was not in weapons, shields, or strength, but in their courage, resilience, and willingness to face the unknown. Leora had not only proven herself, but had also proven humanity's unique place in the galaxy. The trial had ended, but its lessons would echo for generations across the stars. The chamber was silent after the conclusion of the test of vulnerability. The alien delegates, once tense and skeptical, now looked at Leora with a mixture of awe and respect. The hum of the machinery had quieted, leaving only the soft glow of the lights reflecting across the chamber. For the first time in generations, the summit felt more like a gathering of potential allies than rival factions on the brink of war. The Rhinari commander, his towering figure illuminated by the ambient light, stepped forward. His glowing eyes, once cold and assessing, now held a softness that conveyed recognition. "Human," he said, his voice steady, "you have endured what no being could have imagined. You have faced fear, doubt, and isolation without retreat. You have proven that your species, resilience, openness, and courage surpass any weapon or shield. The galaxy has much to learn from you." Leora nodded, standing tall, her calm presence a testament to humanity's strength. She had survived trials that would have crushed countless other beings. She had shown that humans thrived not because of armor or psychic defenses, but because of courage, adaptability, and the willingness to face the unknown fully. Her whispered words at the summit, words that had initially seemed strange or provocative, had revealed the very essence of humanity. The Zelari diplomat stepped forward, her iridescent skin shimmering with a quiet excitement. "Your species, they are extraordinary," she said softly. "No other being in the galaxy lives as openly as humans. They face every challenge, every fear, every uncertainty without shields. That is why they endure. That is why they thrive. That is why we must see them as equals, perhaps even as teachers." A murmur passed through the chamber. The alien delegates, previously rigid and suspicious, now exchanged glances, some of them whispering in their own languages. For centuries, they had dismissed humans as fragile, weak, and insignificant. But now, after witnessing the trial, their perspective had shifted. Humans were not merely another species. They were remarkable in ways no one had imagined. The Rhinari commander turned to the other delegates, his voice resonating throughout the chamber. "Observe what has occurred here. A human has faced the test of vulnerability fully, without shields, without retreat. They have endured fear, loss, and uncertainty while remaining steady and unbroken. This is a species unlike any other. Their courage and resilience demand recognition. They are not weak. They are extraordinary." Leora could feel the change in the room. The tension that had filled the chamber since the summit began was lifting, replaced by a cautious optimism. The aliens were beginning to see humans not as fragile outsiders, but as a species capable of bridging divides, resolving conflicts, and demonstrating strength in ways beyond brute force. She spoke, her voice calm and clear. "We humans do not claim to be the strongest or the fastest. We do not rely on shields or weapons to survive. But we endure, we adapt, and we face challenges that others cannot. That is our nature. That is why we are here, to find understanding, to prevent war, and to show that cooperation is stronger than conflict." The Rhinari commander inclined his head, acknowledging the truth in her words. "Your species has survived where others would fail. You have shown that courage, honesty, and resilience are more powerful than weapons. Let this summit be remembered not for threats, not for hostility, but for the moment when humanity's strength was recognized by the galaxy." The Zelari diplomat added, "Your whispered words, they carried weight because they symbolized openness and courage. No other species could have spoken them with the same truth. Humans do not hide. They live exposed to reality, yet they endure. That is their greatest gift." For the first time in centuries, the summit felt like a turning point. The delegates began to discuss not as rivals, but as beings seeking understanding. Alien leaders spoke quietly among themselves, examining the implications of what they had witnessed. Humanity's unique resilience and courage had shifted the balance. No longer could humans be underestimated or dismissed. Leora observed the change, understanding the significance of what had just occurred. The test of vulnerability was more than a trial. It was a demonstration of human nature itself. Humans had survived impossible odds because they did not hide from reality. They faced fear, loss, and uncertainty fully and with courage. And now, the galaxy had witnessed it firsthand. The Rhinari commander turned to her once more. "You have done more than endure a trial. You have changed perceptions. You have shown us that humans are not fragile but formidable in ways we did not understand. Your species' strength lies in its ability to face the unknown without fear. That is something no weapon or shield could ever replicate." Leora nodded, feeling a quiet pride. Humans had survived disasters, wars, and isolation. They had explored the stars, built civilizations, and endured challenges that would have destroyed others. They thrived not because of invincibility, but because of courage, intelligence, and resilience. And now, the galaxy had been forced to acknowledge it. The delegates began to rise from their seats, one by one, nodding and offering signs of respect. The room, once tense with suspicion and hostility, was now filled with a sense of awe. Humanity had demonstrated a power that could not be measured by weapons or shields. They had demonstrated the human spirit itself. The Zelari diplomat stepped forward again. "Let it be known," she said firmly, "that humans have endured what no other species could. They have faced fear and uncertainty without retreat. They have shown courage, resilience, and wisdom. They are worthy of respect, partnership, and trust." A chorus of murmurs and affirmations spread through the chamber. Alien delegates, previously hostile or doubtful, now spoke in agreement. The message was clear: humans were extraordinary. Their openness, adaptability, and endurance made them unique in the galaxy. The Rhinari commander addressed Leora one final time. "The test of vulnerability has ended. You have passed where no one else could. Your species' strength is now recognized. Let this moment serve as a foundation for peace, cooperation, and understanding among all civilizations." Leora allowed herself a small smile. She had not only survived the trial for herself, but for humanity. She had shown that humans could endure challenges that no other species could withstand, not through force, but through courage, resilience, and openness. The delegates began to file out of the chamber, their conversations now filled with ideas of cooperation rather than conflict. The summit had transformed from a potential war council into a meeting of civilizations willing to explore understanding and collaboration. As the last of the delegates left, Leora took a deep breath and looked around the chamber. The weight of the trial had lifted, replaced by a sense of hope. Humanity had not only survived the test of vulnerability, it had changed the galaxy's perception of its people. The whispered words that had sparked the trial, "Curious if I'm not wearing anything underneath," had been more than a phrase. They were a symbol of human openness, courage, and resilience. They had reminded the galaxy that strength was not measured by shields or weapons, but by the ability to face reality fully and bravely. The Rhinari commander approached one last time. "Human," he said, "you have given us a lesson we will not forget. Your species' courage and resilience are unmatched. Let this be remembered as the day humanity proved its true strength to the galaxy." Leora nodded, feeling the truth of his words deep within her. Humanity had survived, endured, and adapted for centuries. They had faced the unknown with courage and intelligence, and now the galaxy recognized their unique place among the stars. She stepped forward and addressed the empty chamber, her voice calm but strong. "Humans endure. We adapt. We survive. And we will continue to face the unknown unshielded and unafraid. That is our nature. That is our strength. And that is what makes humanity extraordinary." For the first time, the chamber was filled with a quiet reverence. The aliens had seen what no one else had, the human spirit in full display. Humanity's resilience, courage, and openness had shifted the course of the summit, and perhaps even the course of the galaxy itself. Leora took one final look around the chamber, feeling a sense of pride and hope. The test of vulnerability had ended. Humanity had proven its strength. And the galaxy, for the first time, understood that true power lay not in weapons or shields, but in courage, openness, and the ability to endure the unknown. The summit was over, but the impact of humanity's demonstration would resonate across the stars for generations. Humans had shown that they could face any challenge, endure any trial, and thrive where others might falter. They had proven that being unshielded, open, and courageous was not a weakness. It was the ultimate strength. And so, humanity's story in the galaxy took a new turn. One of recognition, respect, and hope. One where humans were no longer underestimated, but celebrated for their resilience, adaptability, and courage. The whispered words that had started it all were now a symbol of something far greater, the enduring power of the human spirit.